Israel shut down one of Islam's holiest sites, the Al-Aqsa Mosque in Jerusalem. The closure comes after a far-right Jewish activist was shot, allegedly by a Palestinian man. Earlier, my colleague Maria Jashi discussed it with our Middle East correspondent, Paula Slier.
I'd like to look at the reaction by Mahmoud Abbas, the Palestinian leader, who called this closure a declaration of war. So that's a pretty strong statement.
It certainly is a strong statement, but not unexpected. I mean, the situation has been boiling for quite some time. I mean, it's very often not mentioned in the international press, but you have daily riots, particularly on Friday, which is an important day for prayer in the Arab world. Now, Abbas has said that this is a declaration of war. He says that Israel does not have the authority to close down such an important place of prayer for Muslims. At the same time, we know right now that there are clashes taking place in Abu Tor in Jerusalem.
But this place is also important for Muslims and Jews, right?
Well, that's exactly the point. The point is that it is this potential conflict, because for Muslims, they believe it's the place where their prophet ascended to the heavens on a horse. For Jews, they believe it's the place where a third temple will be established and where the prophet Abraham almost sacrificed Isaac. So you have these two huge faiths who both lay claim to the same place. Now, the area has been in control of the Israeli authorities since 1967, and its status has been such that it does not allow Jews and other faiths to pray there, which has been a bone of contention. And why you had this particular assassination attempt was because the person who was potentially targeted was someone who was advocating that Jews should be allowed to pray there.
But what are we likely to see happening next? I mean, are these tensions going to be contained, or will they spiral further? What's going to be happening?
Well, this is the million-dollar question, and particularly the Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas has been referencing for quite some time talk of a third Intifada, and this is the question. Could we see the violence that is happening, as I mentioned, on a daily occurrence evolve into something like that? Now, you do have countries like Sweden, which is the first major country in the European Union that recognizes a Palestinian state. Obviously, Israel and the Prime Minister Netanyahu are quite against this. So you have, not only amongst the Jews and the Muslims inside Israel, but on the international arena, a lot of pressure and attention being placed on this issue.
OK, let's get some more thoughts on this. That was our Middle East correspondent. We'll talk now to Abdullah from the Palestinian Legislative Council. Hi there, thanks for being with us. Why do you think Israel has decided to close down Al-Aqsa here? What's the picture?
Well, this is, I think, Israel launching a war on all four fronts. The first front is the Palestinians, denying the Palestinians the right to worship and closing their holiest site is an aggression that has to be responded to, and it is crossing a red light that has been set by the European Union and the other international community. The second front is Israel is launching a war against all Muslims. Al-Aqsa Mosque is the first site of the Muslims and the third holiest site for all Muslims, 1.5 billion of them. Thirdly, it is launching a war against Jordan because Jordan has an agreement with Israel. It's a custodian of these holy sites, and by violating its agreement, then Israel is really reneging on its commitment to keep its part of the peace agreement with Jordan. Fourthly, it is launching a war against international community that stands for international law, stands for the right of the Palestinians to self-determination, and against any act of Israel unilaterally to cross the red light of instigating violence from all parts.
So the next question, what are the likely ramifications going to be of this? Furthermore, to a Palestinian man suspected of killing a far-right... Yeah, well, indeed, on top of this as well, a Palestinian man suspected of killing a far-right Jewish activist was shot dead by police today. That goes into the pot as well. What's it going to mean? Where's it going to go now, then?
No, it didn't start there. It starts when the Israelis were discussing in their Knesset how to take the custodianship of Al-Aqsa Mosque, the holiest site of Muslims, from Jordan to Israel. It starts when the Israelis are daily flocking under the protection of the Israeli police and to desecrate the holy site of Al-Aqsa Mosque. It starts when Israeli leaders are saying that the Palestinians will never have a state of their own. There will be no right for the Palestinians to self-determination.
Going to be now?
The continued policy, the reaction will be a flare-up of conflict that nobody knows for sure how far it can go. Unless Israel is really contained Israel is held accountable for the acts of violation. It's continuing, and its occupation of the Palestinian land ends.
The Palestinian president's called the closure a declaration of war, then. You don't think he's overreacting by the sounds of it?
I think it is a declaration of war, and the Palestinians will not lie dead. The Palestinians have to resist any aggression against them, against their land, against their rights, against their holy sites. And Israel has to be at least controlled, whether if not from within, it has to be controlled by the international community in support of international law, in support of the doctrine of stability and peace in the region.
Abdallah from the Palestinian Legislative Council, thank you.